Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Preacher Boys podcast. My name is, of course, Eric Skwarczynski, and I'm your host for the show. And this is an impromptu solo episode where I want to talk about the importance of having dialogue. More specifically, the importance of having dialogue with people who disagree with you. Now, on the show, I tend to have a variety of guests. I've had on everyone from deconstructionists to people who want to talk about political positions, people who want to talk about racism, people who want to talk about, obviously, abuse. I have people on from a variety of different categories. I have people on who are experts in different fields: psychology, theology, therapy, trauma recovery, law enforcement. And undoubtedly, every time that I have a guest on the show, I usually have someone who gets very upset that I had a guest on the show. And again, this is not me referring to one specific thing. This is something I've thought about doing for the last couple of weeks or months. So if you're watching this and think it's about you, you may very well play a part in me doing this episode, but it's not all about you. I can guarantee you there's about 6 or 7 incidents like this that all come to mind as I sit here and record this episode. But I want to just talk about the importance of dialoguing with people who don't necessarily agree with you. Now, I think coming out of, religious circles especially, I think that we get trained so heavily to always have an answer. And I think that's important. I think that's biblical. As a Christian myself, I think it's important to always be ready to give a response, an apologia for your belief, a apologetic for what it is you believe. I think that's important. And I think it's important because you need to know what it is you believe. If you hold strongly to a position that you don't fully believe in or that you don't understand for yourself, you're in a pretty bad situation. What I would say is lost a lot of times when we think about apologetics or when we think about talking through our beliefs or just discussing beliefs even outside the Christian realm as atheists, as, fill in the blank there, as Democrats, as Republicans, as libertarians. We can tend to have conversations that are solely about us providing our answer, our response, but don't hear the other side. Now, again, I do believe that truth is objective. So there is objective truth out there. But I think what we have to remember is that there's a human being on the other side of the conversation, and we can benefit a lot of things from our conversations. We can learn to gain additional empathy for the person we're talking to. We can have more nuance in our viewpoints. We can develop, common ground in areas that maybe we were too extreme on or they were too extreme on, and come to a more central position. There's a lot of benefits to having conversations with people you don't agree with. And I've tried to do that on the show. I've tried to have people on, like I said, from all walks of life, all different backgrounds, different belief systems. And I think the importance of those conversations is invaluable. It is absolutely crucial to have these kind of conversations. And what I don't want to do is become an echo chamber for everything I believe, for everything a certain guest believes, for everything that certain audience members might believe. I want people to be able to hear the conversations and come to the truth. The truth is always going to rise to the top. The truth is always going to be, J.C. Gross from Recovering Fundamentalist says, truth never fears a challenge. I've been saying for a long time that truth has nowhere to hide. The more you dig for the truth, the closer to the truth you're going to get. And so I think it's important to have conversations and dialogues with people honestly, with the intent to listen, to hear, and then also share openly from where you believe. But like I said, undoubtedly, every time I do an episode, if I do an episode with someone who's more conservative, then the liberal side of social media just piles on. They're like, why did you do that? If I have an interview with someone who's more conservative, then I have all of the liberal side jumping on me, making accusations about things. And the truth is, I try to keep things pretty split on the show. This last week, I've contacted James White from Alpha and Omega Ministries and Sam Harris, who is a famous atheist and philosopher. And the two of them, I have things that I agree with and disagree with, but those are two polar opposites that I'd like to talk to, because I think in conversation, you can dig closer to the truth. And so what I would just recommend is, remember that in these conversations, there are people on the other side. There are many times people who in many ways are similar to you, who probably, if you sat down and had a cup of coffee with and weren't just engaging on Twitter, you'd probably find a lot of common ground that would really surprise you. And so what I want to just warn about is avoid being a default fundamentalist. Avoid finding yourself in a position where only you can be right, only you can have the answer, only you are 100% accurate in everything that you believe. Because the truth is, even if you're 90% accurate, which is unlikely and is probably nowhere close to the number, the reality is there's always something we can learn from a conversation. At the very least, walk away from every conversation with a renewed sense of empathy for the positions that are held from someone who's different than you. Obviously, there are things that are objectively awful if you're talking about abuse, if you're talking about racism and things like that. Of course, there's absolutely nowhere to budge on those topics. But when it comes to nuanced theology, when it comes to political viewpoints, when it comes to ways to try to solve a problem, be open, be understanding, and try to gain a viewpoint from their perspective. So even if you don't fall in line with what they believe after the conversation, you can understand where they're coming from and approach them in a whole new light. But anyway, guys, just a quick impromptu episode there. Just wanted to share my thoughts, and I hope that was helpful for you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Preacher Boys Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Preacher Boys Podcast. If you appreciated the content on the show, please leave a review on iTunes, and don't forget to connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter with the handle @PreacherBoysDoc. Additional information can always be found on PreacherBoysDoc.com.